Hey everybody, Brian Von Vier here. I'm posing an interesting question for all of you. Which real-life historical figures would be great characters for a D&D campaign? Leave yours down in the comments below. Queen Elizabeth I. We really had her in our homebrew campaign nicknamed Lizzie. She was a member of the Fairy Court, also our party's commissioner, and trust me, you do not want to upset a Fae, even less if she is also the Queen of England. Before we continue the video, a quick word from our sponsor, the Eternium Playing Cards. This fantasy-themed deck of playing cards substitutes the old suits and royals for exciting new creatures of clashing elements like flaming sea monsters or a horde of half-undead, half-machine monstrosities. Each face card is painstakingly illustrated by hand, and there's even 3 variants of the decks: Dawn, which has the standard canon illustrations for these factions, and yes, there's lore. Dusk, which shows the same factions in a sort of darkest timeline with alternate art pieces to match, and Twilight, which fuses both decks, showing the Dawn and Dusk illustration on every card. Their Kickstarter campaign has been an overwhelming success, and thanks to that, you too can get your hands on these beautifully illustrated decks at the Eternium shop, link in the description. With that covered, let's get back to the video. Mad Jack Churchill, no relation to a certain prime minister, fought in World War II with a Scottish broadsword at his hip, citing uniform regulation apparently. The only person in the war to get a confirmed kill with a longbow. He captured 42 Germans at sword point, strode back and forth playing the bagpipes on the beaches of Normandy, survived the previous because the enemy thought he was legitimately insane, escaped capture twice, literally just walking out the gate the second time, and complained that the war was too short after it was all over. Julie Lamoupin de Grimby, the daughter of King Louis XIV's Master of Horse, and the bard whom all other bards aspire to be. Traveled around France, winning sword duels, flashed an entire room full of people when one of them questioned her gender, defeated 3 noblemen in a row in duels for a lady's favor so badly she beheaded one of them, impersonated a nun, and committed arson against a church in order to spirit away her girlfriend who got sent to the Covenant, all while married to a nobleman and performing at the opera. Theodore Roosevelt, a man who needs no introduction, but for the uninitiated. 26th President of the United States of America. Defeated his early onset asthma with rigorous exercise, was a prolific big game hunter, and worked as a cattle rancher. Led the Rough Riders of the U.S. Cavalry in uphill charges against walls of gunfire, practiced martial arts, gave a 50-minute speech almost immediately after getting shot in the chest, and fought successfully against the abuses of big business. A man so badass that death had to take him sleeping, else there would have been a fight. Guy Fawkes, one of the, masterminds, quote-unquote, behind the gunpowder plot in the UK. He and his fellow conspirators forewarned their personal friends in Parliament to not show up for the assassination attempt, managed to get their gunpowder wet, accidentally exploded it by drying it next to a fireplace, and all got executed for their troubles. Fawkes himself tried to use the name John Johnson as an alias. Honest Jack Shepherd, a thief from Victorian London, dated a hooker, escaped prison 4 times, and plugged his own biography at his own execution, all while sticking it to London's most powerful and corrupt kingpin, Jonathan Wild. Alcibiades of Athens, ancient Greek statesman, started wars between Athens, Sicily, Sparta, and Persia, may or may not have desecrated a bunch of religious statues, deserted the Athenian army, cucked the Spartan king, got away with it all, and became rich in the process. Finally died when a bunch of people showed up on his doorstep and shot him full of arrows. Ned Kelly, Australian bushwhacker and outlaw, rescued a boy from drowning when he was a kid, and later beat up 2 men who tried to arrest him while one of them had grabbed hold of his crotch. Stole and fought the abuses of rich land squatters and banks. Always treated hostages with polite kindness and left them a cut of the loot. Wore freaking battle armor forged from the blades of farm plows, and went down literally guns blazing in a shootout before being caught, convicted, and executed. Madame Shang, leader of the Guangdong Pirate Confederation. Ran a protection racket on the salt trade and raided the Pearl River for 9 years, evaded capture without losing a single ship when the Chinese Navy had her fleet cornered, negotiated the terms of her own surrender to imperial authorities, got away with everything scot-free, and then opened a gambling house in Canton. Freddy Overstegen, the famed Dutch woman who at age 16 began assassinating Nazis within the occupied Netherlands. Human rogue assassin, of course. She, her sister, and a girl named Hannie Schaeft relied on their ability to be both overlooked and underestimated in order to perform their assassinations. They additionally sabotaged bridges to disrupt Nazi supply lines. Most of the Knights of the Round Table would just be fighters or paladins, or, well, knights if you're talking about an edition that had that class, so that's not too interesting. Merlin, on the other hand, is fascinating. We tend to think of him now as the prototypical wizard, but in the oldest of legends, he would have also been more like a druid, both in terms of the D&D class and the original Celtic wise man archetype like the D&D class was based on. Let's see, Miyamoto Musashi, fighter rogue. Sure, he's known for his legendary skill with the sword, but not enough is said about his great skill at talking smack. Against arguably his most skilled opponent, Sasaki Kojiro, Musashi showed up way late, pissing off Kojiro. Then, he insulted Kojiro's mother, pissing him off further. He stood with his back to the sun to damage Kojiro's visibility, and then he smacked Kojiro in the head with a boat oar. Taunting, sneak attacks, deception. Seems pretty roguish to me. No idea about alignment. Probably some sort of neutral, though. Bill Clinton, chaotic good bard. Does things that directly benefit those around him, and is well liked for his demeanor and mannerisms. But he definitely isn't above getting blown. Wow, God, what a low blow. Ooh. Leonardo da Vinci. I would put him as an alchemist with all of his scientific experiments, perhaps with a few tinker feats, and maybe one bard cross-level. Bards don't just have to be musicians after all. The man was a painter as well, and well-versed in the arts. Alignment would be true neutral, or perhaps neutral good. William Shakespeare is the obvious quintessential bard. His alignment would be neutral good or true neutral as well. Roland. He's where the term paladin comes from. Take a wild guess. Take a wild guess at the alignment too. Ku Kulin, barbarian. The way the warp spasm is described, it's actually closer to an activated ability than an always present skill or talent. I'd give him some sort of neutral alignment. Odysseus, Ulysses, high charisma rogue. He uses guile to achieve his goals and keep himself alive the way a rogue would. The Trojan horse and the "my name is nobody" trick were some epic buff rolls in his part, and they both required some pretty decent stealth rolls on the final part of the execution. He's also a phenomenal archer, which isn't really where the rogue shines, but I guess that can be taken care of with feats. Chaotic good, most likely. Also, I'd consider Robin Hood a sort of archetypical chaotic good. Bill Millen would make a great bard. He played his bagpipes during D-Day at the beach. The Berserker at the Stamford Bridge would make a great barbarian. Aleister Crowley as a warlock. Christopher Lee as a paladin. Bruce Lee as a monk, William Wallace as a fighter barbarian, Rasputin as either a sorcerer or bard would lean more towards bard, H.P. Lovecraft as a warlock, great old one, cause why not? Julius Caesar as a battlemaster fighter or even paladin, Alexander the Great as an Oath of Conquest paladin, same goes for Cristobal Colon, Napoleon as bard would go with College of the Swords, Nikola Tesla as an artificer or wizard, Oppenheimer as an artificer, Mizushi Miyamoto as a Kensei monk or perhaps a swashbuckler rogue, Leonidas as an Oath of Glory paladin, Simo Hauha, aka the White Death, as a Gloomstalker ranger, Sun Tzu as a mastermind rogue, Davy Crockett for druid or ranger, Buffalo Bill as a hunter ranger. Audie Murphy would likely be a fighter or bard due to his acting career after World War II. Emmett Grogan would have been a great quest giver. Maybe a fun source of bard PC, but I don't know if he would gel with a party. Rasputin! High charisma and constitution make for a great sorcerer. Actually, it could benefit from some barbarian rage, since he'd be resistant to pretty much all damage. I changed my mind, full barbarian, maybe zealot. It's not precisely a historical figure, well maybe it is since it's an actual person, but I've played a character not at all loosely based on Don Fry. Haha, fun times! Also, Jackie Chan would make a great Tumblr build. I would see a monk or rogue in there. Jeanne d'Arc, or Joan of Arc. A perfect warrior candidate for a high fantasy world and a perfect strong symbol for women. I agree. J.S. Bach as a bard. Moses, or St. Peter according to your taste, as a cleric. Socrates as a warlock, the daemon. Saka Khan as a barbarian. Don Juan of Austria, C.F. Lepanto as a paladin. Geronimo as a druid. Alfred of Wessex as a ranger. Da Vinci as an artificer. Christopher Lee as a rogue. Bruce Lee as a monk. Aristotle as a wizard. Saladin as a fighter, battlemaster. Julius Caesar as a sorcerer. Davy Crockett for ranger. Sun Tzu for fighter, King Richard the Lion-Hearted for paladin, Vlad Tepes, aka Vlad the Impaler for warlock, the Wright brothers for artificers, C.S. Lewis for cleric, William Shakespeare or J.R.R. Tolkien for bard. It's a really tough choice. Theodore Teddy Roosevelt for rogue barbarian. Walk softly and carry a large stick. Stalin for the big bad evil guy. Honestly, Ben Franklin as an artificer, Thomas Jefferson as a wizard, John Hancock as a rogue, and George Washington as a paladin. Robin Williams. The dude would be killing us all with Tasha's hideous laughter. Rest in peace to one of the great ones. Admiral Yi Sun Sin as a max-level paladin, Oath of the Crown maybe? Alan Turing as an artificer, probably battlesmith. Mansa Musa as a warlock Dao, who is just subscribed to getting warlock powers. He pays the Dao a lot of gold each month and gets powers in return. He can afford to continue to pay like this for 1,000 years more if he stops making more money immediately. Zheng Yi Sao as a swashbuckler rogue with stupid high persuasion and intimidation, like plus 20 to both or something like that. Churchill as a bard eloquence, who abuses vicious mockery. This man is so quotable. Diogenes as a transmutation wizard, just doing his thing in the background. Archimedes as a max-level artificer, battlesmith. Herodotus as a lore bard. John Paul Jones as a swashbuckling rogue too. Augustus as a paladin, conquest, with more charisma than strength and high persuasion and deception. Otto von Bismarck as a bard, valor, paladin, crown, multiclass. Helmuth von Moltke as an artificer, battlesmith because, you know, trains. I'm just giving a shit ton of famous people class levels by this point. I can keep going, but I think I'll stop here. Hey everybody, Brian Von VA checking in after the vid. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring that bell, and let us know which real-life historical figures would be great for a D&D campaign. All the love, we'll see you next time. Bye for now.